Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a thunderstorm event over the central United States. We're going to be seeing thunderstorms going all the way up to parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as going all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So it's going to be a widespread severe weather event due to a very interesting setup with this low pressure system. We're going to be covering all of that and more in today's video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end. Here's what the current National Weather Service page looks like. You can see that we have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in effect for parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, back through Wyoming, and a little bit of Montana as well. We have some freeze warnings in effect in that dark blue for parts of Colorado and Utah, as well as a large area of red flag warnings in effect for the entire state of New Mexico, western Texas, westernmost Oklahoma, southeastern Arizona, eastern Utah, and southern and southwestern parts of Colorado. We also have a few high wind warnings in effect for western Kansas and southeastern Colorado, with some wind advisories up through parts of the central and southern plains. Other than that, we really don't have a lot going on except for a few hazardous weather outlooks in Georgia and also in parts of the northeast. But again, other than that, we don't have much else going on in terms of watches and warnings currently. Yesterday, the high temperature was 4 miles northwest of Topeka, Arizona, where they got to 101 degrees Fahrenheit, and the national low temperature was in Peter Sinks, Utah, where they got to 11 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's in a higher elevation region in northernmost Utah. In Hart, Michigan, they got 1.04 inches of rainfall yesterday, and that was the national highest precipitation report yesterday. And the highest snowfall report yesterday was 7 miles southwest of Red River Hot Springs in Idaho, where they got 9 inches of snowfall, and that's from that snowstorm that you saw on the thumbnail of today's video. Here's what the National Weather Service, or actually the Storm Prediction Center, is showing in terms of the risk for severe weather for today. You can see that we have a marginal risk of severe weather in effect anywhere in that green. So that goes for much of the central and even stretching into the northern plains. And then you see for a little bit of Minnesota and northern Wisconsin as well, we have that marginal risk kind of poking through there. And then we also have a slight risk of severe weather in effect for parts of eastern Kansas, eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, and also into parts of southeasternmost South Dakota. And that's for today. And then if we go to tomorrow, you're going to see that we have a marginal risk of severe weather over a much larger area in the green for the central part of the country, and then a yellow area for that slight risk in parts of Mississippi, Tennessee, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas, and some of the surrounding areas as well. Somebody in the comment section yesterday said it looks like an avocado, so it really does when you look at it, the green outline and then the yellow core. So just something funny that somebody posted in the comments yesterday in regards to the Storm Prediction Center's forecast. And then here's the day 3 outlook, and you can see that we have a marginal risk of severe weather in the Gulf Coast region. So for areas like Louisiana, Arkansas, even going a little bit further west into Texas, back through much of Mississippi, Alabama, western Georgia, and the panhandle of Florida. And then you can see a fairly large area of just general thunderstorm risk, which covers much of the eastern United States except for the immediate east coast and the northeast. If we start to look at what the radar is expected to look like, let's kind of play this through for you guys. Here's what the regional Canadian model is showing, and this would be by later today. And you're going to see that we have a low pressure down through parts of western Kansas, and this is going to be spiraling further to the north, and you're really going to see kind of a loop shape with this low pressure system, especially when you start to see the future cast radar on this model. It's going to look very impressive when you do see the future frames of this model, and it's a very well developed and well put together type of storm system. If this were in the summertime, we would have a lot more moisture and warm air to be pulled up, and we would have a much more intense severe weather event. Luckily, we're only in early April, so the effects aren't going to be as drastic. So this would, again, be by later today, probably right around 7 or 8 o'clock tonight, Central Time, and we're dealing with mostly rain through the northern plains, not a lot of severe weather, and even a few snowflakes poking through in parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wyoming, as well, as you can see in that blue color. you can see that we do have more of those thunderstorms starting to sprout up through parts of Nebraska, South Dakota, even a little bit of Iowa and Minnesota as well. Your low pressure is very elongated by this point, somewhat like this. So you have a long form low pressure system centered over the central plains, and that's creating a lot of divergence out ahead of this. So basically what the divergence is basically that we have all the wind barbs kind of put together in one place, and then eventually with time they start to spread out. So you can see that these wind barbs are kind of moving a little bit further to the left on your screen, and these ones are starting to move a little bit further to the right. That's a little bit of divergence that can create a little bit of spin and energy in the atmosphere, and that's how you can tell that you have a little bit of wind shear out of head of this, and also that you have pretty ample conditions for at least some severe weather to be taking place. You usually see this with quite strong storm systems, not necessarily always matching up with severe weather, but it can help the severe weather nonetheless. This would be by very early on Wednesday, so right around 1 in the morning Central Time, and we're dealing with more of that fairly robust severe weather back through the northern plains. We are dealing with a little bit of a supercell composite area over parts of eastern Oklahoma, so we do want to watch out, especially over the southeastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, and then back through into a little bit of Missouri and Arkansas as well, especially early on Wednesday. It does look like we could be dealing with some sort of small batch of thunderstorms and a little cluster of storms that could cause some damage. It does die down, though, by Wednesday morning, but you're going to see that as we move through the evening hours on Wednesday, it is going to start to ramp up as we get all that daytime heating, and then you go boom right around 5 o'clock in the evening, and this is when we're going to start to see more of those thunderstorms pop right back up. So you can see that low pressure up here. We have very warm, humid air out ahead of this system, so we're pulling in a lot of warm air out ahead of the storm, and then we're dealing with a lot of cooler, drier air back on the western end. That's why you have those red flag warnings for fire danger out in the southwestern and south central United States. They're going to be seeing windy conditions and the dry and cold air on the back side of this. And that's going to help fuel the fires there. But on the other side of the Mississippi River, on the other side of the Texas and Oklahoma border, we're going to be dealing with actually the complete opposite: thunderstorms and excessive rainfall in some of these areas. So that's the type of setup we have. We have a fairly decent and well put up cold front right through here. You have an occluded front, which is further to the north up through here, and then we have that warm front, which is draped over kind of like this. So that's the setup of your storm, and that, hopefully that gives you generally a better idea of what this storm is dealing with and what we are going to be dealing with this storm. So this would be by later on Wednesday. So right around your dinner time or your evening hours, and you're dealing with more of that heavy torrential rainfall at times in some of these areas. It does strengthen a little bit, and we do want to watch out for this. We do have a little bit of a bow echo of thunderstorms, and that's basically when you see kind of a straight line but a little bit of a curve on either end in a big line of thunderstorms, and those can be quite destructive, especially with damaging winds. Doesn't look like too much of a tornado threat, though. We could see a couple of tornadoes, but it looks like the main threat is going to be like hail and wind instead of more of the tornadic type of thunderstorms. So luckily that's a plus side. We're not dealing with as many tornadoes as we've seen in the past couple of weeks, and definitely compared to the last couple of weekends in terms of severe weather, this is going to actually look like a rather quiet weekend if for severe weather. This would be by very early on Thursday. We're dealing with more of those thunderstorms draping ahead further to the east. And by the way, look at the formation of this storm. So you have your big cold front that's kind of like this, and it's on a very interesting angle right here where it's kind of pushed to the front over to the central part of that of the cold front, and then you have that warm front, which is all the way back here. So you have your occluded front somewhat like this, and now your warm front is going all the way up right like this. So this is a very dynamic type of low pressure system. The warm front is behind the cold front, something that you really don't see too often. So very interesting setup here, and something that's going to be quite complex to track, mainly because of how dynamic this storm system really is. And then by Thursday in the morning, the storms are really dying out, and we're not dealing with too much of a lingering threat after that. Here's what the CAPE numbers look like, the convective available potential energy, and you can see that we have values that are well above what I like to use as the 500 joules per kilogram threshold. Once you get into that blue shaded area, that's when you have a decent chance of seeing some severe weather. So you can see that over parts of the upper Great Lakes, and then all back through the central part of the United States, we have those 500 plus joules per kilogram amounts, which would indicate quite a large amount of energy and instability in the atmosphere. That would be by late tonight. Here's by Wednesday morning. You don't see as much of it here, but you are starting to see a little bit of daytime heating helping to bring those CAPE values a little bit up, and then you're going to see that by Thursday or Wednesday night into Thursday morning, you can see that we have that strong definition of the storm system. Look at where the storms are by this point, somewhat like this. So right ahead of there, you have CAPE values that are between 300 and 600 joules per kilogram, even a few amounts getting up to near 800 in some of these areas. So we do have ample CAPE, and that's not really going to be anything to worry about. If we look at the high temperatures for today, you can see that mid 70s for much of the central and eastern part of the country. So anywhere that you live, basically from the Rockies eastward, except if you live right along the northeast area, that we're going to be all above 70 in these areas, well above 70s in some of these areas, even approaching 80s in parts of the southeast, and then even back through the south central United States, also approaching the 80-degree mark, even a few amounts over 90 degrees in some of these areas. And then here to be for tomorrow, you can see that the chillier air is being pulled in on the back end, but look at this all ahead of here, and you can see that we have very warm temperatures, especially from the states bordering the Mississippi River and eastward. We're dealing with very warm temperatures, still bordering that 70 to 80 degree mark there, so well above that 65 degree temperature threshold that you typically need, and then if you look at the dew points, these are also going to be definitely well enough to support some thunderstorms. You can see that a lot of these areas, actually, the models did push up the dew points, especially the European model, and some of the low resolution models also did that, where they are showing some dew points now getting closer to 60 degrees. That's why you have that threshold, that area of slight risk up through parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And then you can see also fairly humid air out ahead of this. So even though it's in the upper 50s, even some low 60s to the south, that is ample enough. You can still support some thunderstorms with that. Now, this would be by Wednesday morning, so tomorrow morning, we're dealing with dew points that are going to be all above 60 as you get further to the south, but it's really by the nighttime that it really starts to get going in terms of the severe weather, and you can see those 60s going all the way up from Minnesota down through to the Gulf Coast. So this is where we're dealing with a sustained large area of 60-degree plus dew points for much of the central column of the United States. This is the one area that's lacking, and this is why we're not really going to be dealing with too much of a threat of tornadoes and a fairly minimal threat of hail, although hail is still on the table for these storms. And I'm not saying that tornadoes are also off the table. I think there will be a couple tornadoes. I don't think it'll be the type of tornado outbreaks that we saw in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia the past couple of weeks. So luckily we're not dealing with that. Mainly a wind, hail threat, but watch out for a couple of weak tornadoes as well. So you can see we do have an area of weak shear out through the central part of the country that will start to fill in, though, as we go through the day on Wednesday. You can see that all the shear is back through here. You want shear to create thunderstorms. That really helps thunderstorms get going, and this is what's really lacking over the one area that's going to be seeing the thunderstorms. Right through here, really all around there, we have ample shear, but not really in that one area that's going to be expecting thunderstorms. So if we go through Wednesday morning, you can see those shear amounts actually go even lower, but it's on the back end by Wednesday night when we might get a little bit of shear to bump up. So this is probably by Wednesday night when we could see the introduction of a few tornadoes over the south central and southeastern United States. Most likely weak tornadoes. I'm not really thinking that we're going to see anything above an EF2 at the highest. So this is not really a tornado type of event. We could see, again, one or two tornadoes, but nothing that's going to be really prolific or really anything too strong, but you still do want to take precautions. Here's the maximum wind gusts that are expected And you can see that they will be breezy but still manageable over much of the country, except if you live in this area right here, anywhere east of the Rockies, all the way through parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, even a little bit of Nebraska as well. We're dealing with winds that in knots could be gusting to 40 to 50 knots, and in miles per hour, that would be closer to 45 to 55, even 60 miles per hour at times. But you go out of that area, and we're dealing with fairly breezy conditions, but nothing too crazy. And it's not anything that's going to really blow the trash cans around or anything like that. It will be breezy, but it's not going to be anything too crazy. And then you get east of the Appalachians, and this is when we're dealing with fairly mild, nice conditions with not a lot of wind to go along with it. So very, very nice conditions if you live basically from the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys eastward. Anywhere east of there, we're dealing with very nice, pleasant conditions for winds and also temperatures in those areas. So enjoy the nice weather if you're not being impacted by this storm. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.